I'm Emily. If you're not familiar with who I am, I have been making art content here on YouTube for the past 6 years. For the majority of those 6 years and several years prior, I had been facing stalking, harassment, and threats from one very recognizable source.
This is Emily Artful. Emily is part of the art commentary community. And as you guys know, I used to have a commentary channel. I used to do commentary on this channel. And I am also an artist. Big fan of this community, and it's a very specific community with a very specific fan base. Now, there's a lot of artists on YouTube, but what we all know is that if you can blend commentary with anything else you're doing, your channel will probably get big. And there's a lot of these, usually young ladies on YouTube that do them. Of course, you know, we have people like D'Angelo Wallace and people like that, but most of the times they're women, and they tell very personal stories. But this story is going to be very specific. It's going to be the story of either dying as a hero or living long enough to be the villain. And the villain being talked about in this particular situation is one of my all-time favorite art YouTubers.
For many years, I had no idea who this person was. I had speculations, but they were pretty far off. And because of that, I had to endure that abuse. I went to the police. I was turned away. I spoke to an attorney. They told me it's not going to be worth it taking it to court. I even went as far as hiring a private investigator for a short period of time, and he said the same thing. The PI and the attorney advised me that I needed to start taking screenshots of everything that I could and keeping track of what was happening to me. This story is long, so I recommend you watch it at 1.5 speed if you can. It's long because this stalking campaign has lasted the better part of a decade. And while I didn't know who my stalker was before, now I know who my stalker is. My stalker is Shannon, better known as Creepshow Art, and what I believe to be her current husband, Anthony Parker.
And of course, all of this is alleged and innocent till proven guilty and all of that. But there's some pretty damning evidence. Now, this all jumped off with me seeing a video from Hopeless Peaches. And I was like, oh, okay, video about Creepshow Art. I'll check this out later. And I filed it off in my watch later, in the watch later in my mind, because no one ever goes back to the watch later function on YouTube. And to be honest with you, I didn't keep up with the Hopeless Peaches Creepshow Art drama. I just, it wasn't that interesting to me. Now, back in my commentary days, I would have been all over it. But nowadays, I'm like, okay. And then I saw a video from this YouTuber I've never heard of called Amia. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's something else. And then I started seeing more and more and more videos. And if you've been on YouTube long enough, you know what that means. The blood's in the water and somebody done did something. And sure enough, the algorithm kept putting it in front of my face. But later on, I think about a day or so later, I saw this video from Emily. So, of course, I'm thinking, oh, wow, our internet mommies are getting into some drama. Okay, well, I'll definitely check this out later. But as you can see from the opening, this wasn't your standard YouTuber drama. It appears that Shannon, who herself has claimed to have been stalked and harassed by people on the internet, was apparently, allegedly, stalking Emily. And this hits so hard because aside from the obvious you shouldn't be stalking people, Shannon was the hero. You don't put Shannon on blast. Shannon puts you on blast because you did something that we could all look at and go, that's bad. Shannon was the queen of call-out culture, which is a little bit different from cancel culture. And a lot of people see it as the same, but not so much. While a lot of times it may have similar effects, cancel culture is very specifically trying to cancel and end your career so that you don't have any way of making money or have the ability to take care of yourself. Whereas call-out culture, it's a little bit different. It's just shedding light on the thing that you did. And sometimes the thing that you did was not that bad, and sometimes the thing that you did was horrible. Now, I've seen some people who have been called out who I personally think should have been canceled. I've also seen some people who they've tried to cancel who, when you look at what they did, it's kind of like, yeah, that was kind of bad, but that person should still have a job. And I give Shannon credit for exposing certain P to the E to the D to the O's and things of that nature, bringing those people to light. Some of the things that she talked about, let's be real, it was standard YouTube drama, and you watched her channel for the tea, as they like to say. And one of the things that she would do is she would go in on people for misinformation. A big one was Blair White. She went in on her for misinformation. And after watching the video, yeah, she was 100% right about how Blair handled, or I should say mishandled, the situation. But when Shannon is called out about mishandling or bad information, or just blatantly lying sometimes, for some reason, we, and that includes myself, ignore it. It's the type of blatant bias, the blatant cognitive bias that I myself hate to see in other people, but you gotta admit, we all have it. I didn't go out of my way to avoid negative information about Creepshow art, but I was very open to boiling it down to, that's just YouTube drama. I'm not looking to get into that right now. But when Shannon did a video, it was very different. It was, well, let me hear her out. And then sometimes it was even, let me go deeper and watch more videos about this if it was something I was that interested in. But what exactly is the evidence against Creepshow art?
Emily's video, she mentioned a library called Tigard Public Library in Oregon. She also mentioned tricking them a few times into clicking IP tracker links, and one of those times led right back to this library. So let's take a listen at the sound of Creepshow unwittingly digging her own grave.
So I would go every day to a Starbucks or to the Tigard Public Library, and I would sit and I would just draw for hours trying to get one video done.
After hearing this interview, I immediately DM'd Emily to confirm this because I did remember her mentioning Oregon in one of the times that she tricked him into clicking the IP tracking link. So isn't it weird that Emily was getting harassed by someone at a public library in Tigard, Oregon, and here Creepshow is admitting to using the same library? It's not a coincidence at all. There is no longer room for skepticism anymore, or to even deny that this is true at this point. She name-dropped Emily, she talked about being homeless, and name-dropped the library that she was at. I mean, what are the odds here that Creepshow is married to Emily's ex-boyfriend and using the same library that Emily traced the IP address from?
Now, if you're like me, you would probably say, well, that's circumstantial evidence. Anyone could have been at that library. But here's a thing. There's someone else who openly acknowledges what Shannon was doing. Kevin Cutler is a guy on Twitter who says that he was a friend of Shannon's. And he actually witnessed her doing these things, or at least some form of these things. He says that he himself was in a relationship that wasn't so good, and he and Shannon became friends. But he mentions the music video that Emily was in. And that music video was for a song that was made by Anthony. And Anthony, at the time, was both Emily and Shannon's ex. But Shannon was still in an FWB relationship with the guy and was developing a fixation with Emily. And according to, and again, all alleged, but according to Kevin, he witnessed Shannon doing some of the things that she is accused of. Now, I've been known to defend people when I think people are going overboard with the call-out culture nonsense. In fact, in one of the videos that I deleted to appease our corporate overlords, I had defended Holly Brown during the tracing scandal because I just couldn't believe that if she felt she was doing something wrong, that she would be so blatant about it to do it on a video where everybody could see it. And her story kind of made sense. It seemed legit. So I had to believe that she didn't feel that she was doing something so wrong, and I put that out there. But I also brought up the fact that whether people like it or not, even in professional comics, tracing does happen. People may not like it, but it happens, especially when artists are on a time crunch. Now, I started this video assuming that whatever the allegations were against Shannon, they were probably going to be haters. Haters. They just don't like Shannon, or it wasn't going to be that big of a deal, because what could Shannon have done? But it turns out that it was actually pretty serious. And it wasn't just drama. The takeaway here being that all of these people are human. And the person you see on the screen, the YouTuber, the Twitch streamer, whatever it is you see on the screen that gives you your entertainment, your information, etc., they're showing you the side of them that they want you to see. And that would include me and any other YouTuber that you watch. The fact of the matter is, everyone has done something. Some people are still doing those things. And yes, some people need to be called out, and some people do need to be downright canceled. But people who make it their job to downright call out and cancel everybody, they usually turn out not to be so innocent. They usually turn out to be just as bad as the other people that they're calling out, in some way, shape, or form. One of the reasons I stopped doing the type of commentary that I was doing was because I watched people call other people snowflakes and mock and laugh at people when they got upset at certain things. But when it came their time, what comes around goes around, and when it came around to them, they acted the same way, if not worse. They were the biggest hypocrites in the world. So if you're going to throw a stone, just make sure you're not living in a glass house. You guys take it easy. Nathan Brandon Masters. Hasta.
Don't look back, we're here to stay. A life we knew would come one day. And this is it, the borderline to where the future leaves us behind. The fire